Hello, everybody, and welcome to
Happy
CLC
holidays!
Live.
It's official.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, before we get started, friendly reminder as we get back into the groove here, we took a couple weeks off. We missed you guys. If you're watching out there in social media, YouTube, Facebook land, go ahead, join in the conversation. We would love to hear from you. And wherever you're watching this, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and subscribe to our channel. That is important in not only supporting us and letting us know that you like what we're doing, but also in so that you can know when we're putting out new videos, when new information comes out. That's wonderful for you as well. So the only way we know that this is helping anybody is if you subscribe, comment, interact with what it is we are doing. So thank you.
What if they don't like what we're doing? Should they hit the dislike?
They can do what other people do and write a rude comment on our
You can
video.
tell us too. We're totally fine with that. Hello.
Rude comments. We like rude comments.
I
We
do.
will
It's
consider
funny.
them.
I'm the only one who is like, yes, okay, that's not a bad thing because it means we're reaching people. We're making people think. People are disagreeing with us. Hi, Jeremy Couch from Ohio. Good
Hi,
to
Jeremy.
see you.
Maybe it could be someone else's turn, like Jen or Lisa's, to have a rude comment written about them.
Oh, well, yes. Oh, Anthony's had them written about him specifically. That's true. That is very true. That's funny.
Someone else's.
I don't want them. Thank you.
I volunteer for tribute. You can write a rude comment about me.
I volunteer
handle
you then, Jen.
So, we're going back into the 101 sort of topics. We were kind of free form in November, but we're going back to now coaching 101, planning 101. That's what it is. And today's topic is better than a resolution. Do this for New Year's instead. So, why do New Year's resolutions suck? And what are the alternatives? What can we do? Should we just give up on resolutions altogether?
I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, okay, before we get into the hard and fast facts about how your resolution is probably going to fail, why do we do that? Why is this even a practice?
Why is it even a practice? Why is it currently a practice, or how did it even start to begin with?
Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted,
Who, me?
Brooke.
Sorry, my thing was popping up in the way and not letting me mute or unmute myself. So, well, why is it that we wait till the new year? The new year is this thing where we sit down and go, okay, I'm setting a resolution this year. I'm gonna do it.
It's kind of a funny thing. It's like we got to do things on Monday. We can't do it on Thursday to start something. It's got to be January to start something. It can't be November. For some reason in our mind, I don't know. We need those.
I think we like the illusion of a fresh start.
Yeah, I think so.
And emphasis on the illusion.
Yeah.
Also, now I'm looking at this, we've been doing this for a long time. I'm reading back to ancient Rome and even back 4,000 years ago to the Babylonians. They would make similar pledges. They had a different year, so their New Year's resolutions were probably in March or something like that.
I don't think they probably called them New Year's resolutions, though, did they? What did they call them?
Let me consult my ancient Babylonian, and I will get back to you. But it's been going for quite some time. It's just something we got in the habit of doing, when there's a periodic amount of time, and we're signaling something as okay, this is the start of a new year. Let's reflect on what we've done, and let's look towards the future and do things a little different. So a resolution is I'm resolving to change my behavior some way.
I have resolved. Jeremy said, I pick a word like mindfulness and then go with that. That's one of the alternatives we will be talking into very soon. So that is a good plan. So before we dive into what the alternatives are, why do they fail?
Because people lack the will and resolve in the spine.
No.
I have a spine. Do you have a spine? I think we all have a spine.
Also, this will be a callback. We've done this before. We've done a whole thing about, and it was more specifically about why they fail. And we're just going to sort of now build out the previous blog and previous information, adding in some more alternatives. So if you want to deeper dive into why they fail, you can go ahead and watch that video, and we'll drop it in our comments before the live is over. Jen, you have a thought. I see it.
Yeah, I think a good first clue as to why they fail is none of us even know why we're doing it in the first place. So like when you ask that question, why do we make New Year's resolutions? I realize I just learned that from society as like it's a thing, and I just followed it, and I just realized like, wow, I have no idea why
I was taught in elementary school about what a New Year's resolution was. They were just like, hey, little third grade Anthony, let's set New Year's resolutions. That'd be fun. And then we did it, and then we just learned how to set them. We didn't learn how to execute them. Setting a resolution is so easy. You can just say whatever you want. You can set as many resolutions as you can with no accountability. And the more you set, that just increases the rate of failure. So I'm not surprised that there's just like a near 99% failure rate of resolutions because there's no drawback.
By the end of the year, yes. And you'd be surprised to find out that it's like there's statistics out there that say, like, I don't know how they measure this, but like 80% by February have already given up. Like it's like it's not even going to last you a month. And we've touched on some of the reasons why, right? The lack of emotional relevance, the lack of planning, the lack of realistic goal setting. There is a lot that goes into setting a resolution and following it through. And I think that people don't dive into the planning and everything. A lot of times maybe they start out real strong in the beginning, but life gets in the way and then they drop off. I think there's some sense of black and whiteness that comes in with this, with New Year's resolution setting, where it goes, I'm going to eat right. That's a very general, right? I'm going to eat right. Well, how, right? We're losing. There's all these specifics, all these coaching questions that come up that are just sort of lacking in that space. And then when people start them and they drop off, they don't go back to them. They go, well, I already screwed it up. I'm just going to go back. I'm just not going to
wait till next year for the next resolution.
All or nothing. All or nothing. Also, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's a new year, but we're in the dead of winter. It doesn't feel new. So like I actually don't feel inclined to shift or change until spring.
That's why the Babylonians did it in March. I'm telling you. I don't quote me on that. I don't know that for but it would make sense.
We've got the BS meter moving.
I'm feeling a little spicy today. And they're just not. I mean, you can look at the SMART goals. Like I feel I'm going crazy by how many times I'm having to reference SMART goals in just random parts of my life. Not specific or measurable or achievable or relevant or time bound. They're none of those things. They're just words that you're saying out in the air, and then you don't do anything with it, and they fail. That's why. It's a very simple reason why they fail.
Or maybe we're not really attached to them. There's just a lot of
or
reasons.
Getting peer pressure like everyone else is saying the resolution, so you just say something like, I'm gonna be more charitable, I'm gonna be more fit.
I think there's probably good intentions. I mean, it's good intention to make a change for the better, but I think if you're not committed and work it through, I think there's that likeliness that life gets in the way, like Brooke was saying. I think it's easier for life to get in the way and then not get back up on the horse.
And then, that's all another thinking that Jen mentioned. It was like, oh, now that I failed this one time, I'm just going to give up the rest of the year and not do it, and I'll maybe wait till next year to start again. I
There's
do
it's
that,
all or
but on
nothing.
like a shorter basis.
I think there's some inflexibility too. Like I think that people, like maybe they're like going through and they're realizing, oh, I'm not doing it, and rather than maybe flex or adjust that resolution into a new space, they feel like, well, I made this declaration, I have to do this specific this thing,
Mhm.
this whatever it is,
Right.
and they're rather than being flexible and learning and changing and that goal growing, because anybody who has coached, we realize and we watch our clients come in with one goal and how much it changes, how much it flexes, how often that goal is kind of, it turns out to be something else completely. So if you don't have that flexibility and you don't have a deeper understanding and there aren't all these things, it is sort of a recipe for disaster that starts to come up. Also, it might just be realizing you don't want to do it. It might be, but if we think about how it is with our clients and how they are when they're going through working on their goals, and how much those goals can change, how much they're tied to on deeper levels, all of those like pieces that just go into setting a resolution aren't ever addressed, right? We just sort of say we're going to do it, and it takes a really strong resolve and probably some really deep personal understanding to follow through on that resolution. So, not to bring everybody down and just say kick the resolutions out the door. We're going to give you some tools, options, things you can do instead, in lieu of, that might work for you in this space. So, all right. I have a list, but I don't want to just read down the list. So I just want to throw it out to you guys. What other options have you come up with?
I also have a list.
Can we start with Jeremy's? Because to me, that sounds like setting an intention and then allowing that intention to manifest in different ways without like restricting it to be a very specific way it has to manifest. Like he said, pick a word, mindfulness. And then, I mean, what does that mean?
Well, I would probably ask, what do you mean by mindfulness? Because
of course you would.
we don't have really an established, like, what does that look like? I don't know what mindfulness. My kind of mindfulness might be different from Jeremy's mindfulness.
Well, if we were coaching, right, we were going to start to ask those questions into that. So we might.
Well,
with Jeremy.
I'm not coaching, but if I were to set an intention, I maybe would think about, okay, well, what does that mean to be more mindful? What am I doing now versus what I could be doing next year to be more mindful? Otherwise, I just have a word.
I use the word commitment. What am I willing to commit to myself? And I think that's what we're saying, even in the mindfulness. What are we going to be mindful of when making a decision about this new direction that we are wanting to incorporate?
I mean, if Jeremy is still here, he might be able to answer how he would bring mindfulness in. I mean, I can imagine for Anthony, it might just be a word, but for me, if I'm taking a word and like mindfulness is a great word. Okay, what is mindfulness? What is the definition for me? I'm going to be more mindful, and being more mindful for me is being more present, being more. So I'm going to start to think about that.
Accountable. Yeah.
Being more accountable. And it might just be a reflection for me. It might be like, okay, I'm going to reflect more. And there's lots of ways you can take and infuse mindfulness into just what you're doing every day or what have you. It's starting to practice, maybe turning the volume up in one area of your life, but not stressing yourself out and setting, and I guess that there's some fluidity there, right? We can be mindful, I think, after something happens a little bit as well.
So if you guys were going to set an intention for 2025, what could it be? And we'll start with Anthony, since he loves words.
Okay, so the intention, what we're saying when we're saying setting intention is like, I intend by the end of, I'm already making this too detailed, but I intend by the end of the year to X, Y, and Z. Is that what we mean by intention? or to
No,
be X?
just
Just a word.
a word that if
Pick
you
pick
were
a
to
theme. A theme for your
theme.
year. One word theme.
Yeah.
A one-word theme. Now you put me on the spot. I don't know what my one word would be.
Okay,
One
we can
word
move
theme.
to someone else and give you more time.
All right, give me more time.
I have something that in mind, but it's not one word. It's like,
Okay, that's okay.
yeah. So we know I'm doing my exercise stuff that I still hate. Still doing it. But I want to add, I want to investigate what it is to either do kickboxing or regular boxing. I don't want to box somebody, but I want somebody to teach me how to do all the moves.
So
Don't wanna
I'm
punch
hearing your intention is to explore kickboxing in 2025.
Or regular boxing.
I've got one that I think I have already started working on is just gratitude, being appreciative of the things that I do have. And more so, less focused on the things I don't have. That's the part I'm really trying to nail down.
And Jeremy answered, he said, mindfulness is to be present or the now. So the here and now concept.
So that was interesting, Jerome, really quick, just to pop in. And you said practicing gratefulness, but then you said, but more specifically, not focusing on what you don't have.
Yeah, it's because I feel like I'm pretty grateful for the things I do have. What I do get lost in sometimes, especially with social media, it's really easy to kind of just be like, why don't I have that? You know, like feels like I should be able to get that. Why don't I have it? And then in the same note, you kind of start forgetting to be grateful for the things that you do have. It's kind of a vicious cycle. So the part that, again, I think if I get a handle on, I can continue to be as grateful as I am. Is just, trying to avoid going down that rabbit hole of what I don't have, because I know that eventually it'll get there if I continue to be grateful and move in a positive manner that I'm trying to do.
I've got one.
Okay.
I think I've got it. Foundation. I would like to set the foundation for the rest of my 30s as the intention. My 20s were nice. Loved them. Probably forgot 70% of them, so I know I had a good time. But the foundation would be a good intention. Now let's lay out the groundwork for the rest of my 30s so that it's also enjoyable.
It's
You're
funny.
30? I didn't know
It's
Anthony was 30.
I turned 30 in September.
I'm joking.
It's funny as he says that, like that intention makes my, like, I have a visceral reaction of like skin crawling. Like,
Really? Oh,
yeah, it's funny. I hear foundation and I think, oh God, that sounds awful.
How? Like awful for you specifically? Because
And like it just sounds like boring and like like
work.
restricting and like you can know like that's like the last thing I would choose.
okay, me and Brooke are just.
I mean, I think it's a
completely
good
different
thing.
people.
I think it's a very responsible thing, but it's like it's like I don't know. I don't know that I couldn't know.
Gotcha.
Brooke
All
has
right.
a negative association with the word foundation, whereas Anthony does not appear to have that.
I mean, I'm neutral. It's just like if I want to build a house or build something on top of it, I need a
You have a
foundation.
good foundation. I mean, I don't, I guess, always have that reaction to it, but
Brooke's a set designer, so she doesn't understand foundations. Or
no,
things
we
that
take
last
down,
for
we
longer than
destroy,
30 days.
yeah, it's all gonna come down anyway.
Everything that Brooke has ever built is temporary.
It is. It's true. Yeah. Like if we're talking about physical things, like.
Oh yeah, sure, physical things.
Mhm.
How about you,
But-
Jen?
Yeah, Jen.
Mine is one still that I've been working on, and I just see continued opportunity for it to keep growing, and that is slowing down. You guys may not know this about me, But sometimes I can
Slowing
get very,
down is 2 words.
what?
That's not one word.
Everything but continue.
Sometimes I can get very triggered and I can pop off, and I am not very nice when I do that. And I don't like being that way. I don't like being that person. And I always have such deep like regret after it happens. And so I'm at the point where I'm able to witness the whole process with compassion. And I get really curious about it, and I'm collecting so much data about it. And now it's just continuing to practice it and actually make that who I am. Someone who doesn't pop off, but someone who takes a breath and slows down. So I want to move from, being reactive to being more grounded. And I've been doing that. It's just taking me a bit of work
What
to
could you
actually
do?
fully execute.
What could you do to enjoy being the person who pops off? That was aggressive.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's like the shadow side of me that is like, who cares? Who cares if you're like that? Like, just do you, But it's like, well, hold on. I don't know if that's actually me. It's a part of me, that's for sure. But, I
Not
don't
who
like
you
the
want to be.
results. I don't like how it affects people. I don't like that.
Mm.
So
Now that we've set our intentions, how do we feel
Wait, Brooke
about it?
didn't.
Oh, Brooke,
didn't.
go on.
Well, I'm like stuck between many ideas. I can't settle on one. So this is already, I just can't. That's not. It's
First
not
word that comes to your mind right now.
Well.
Well, okay. Wells are deep.
Maybe the intention word is settling.
No, that's gross.
Oh, it's foundation. I
make
knew
her
it.
think of settling into a foundation. Not good,
Okay.
not good.
No. I mean, I think words like curiosity, adventure, playfulness, those are my words.
Brooke has
So,
multiple words.
yeah.
They all
Yeah.
kind of
Now
go
that-
together.
We've set the intention. Can we just give up? Like, do we just get to skip all the resolution stuff? And we did it. We set an intention.
Yeah, we're done.
We could.
Yeah.
We're going to be
It doesn't
successful.
get anything done, but
My
we definitely
resolutions-
could.
My resolution for the past several years has just been not to die. So I've been successful every year.
Okay.
I'll tell you next year if I mean, not yet. I still have like a month.
I mean,
So-
I'll tell you guys. I don't know if Brooke will tell you guys if she fails. Okay, so we have intentions. We've got a theme going on. How do we remind ourselves of these themes? Like, how do we make sure that throughout the entire year, the theme is consistent rather than I just forget, come January 1st?
Well, I think it'll be different for everybody. I don't actually want to
For
come up
sure.
with a plan. I don't actually intend to set an intention. It's just not who I am. But I think that you could work through that and start to build it out.
Yeah.
And that would be an important part of it too, is creating a plan around it. And
What about we've got an intention? Can we make that a vision now?
what do you?
Like, what does for Jen not popping off look like by the end of the year?
Oh,
By
I
the
can
end of
tell you
next year.
clearly. It
Well-
means every time I go home and visit my family that I don't end up in regret for screaming at my parents.
Oh, now we got something a little more developed than just an
I've
intention.
reduced it. So I'm making progress,
Mhm.
but I still slip here and there. And I would really like to get it to ground zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jerome, what was your intention word?
Gratitude.
What does that look like by the end of next year?
That's a tough one.
Also, while you think about it, remember we have other alternatives too, so we can't.
Well, that's
get too
I'm
lost
go- I'm
in the
I'm
weeds
going
here.
through the alternative. The vision is the alternative to the intention because intention is just like a theme, where a vision is like, okay, now I'm like visualizing and grounding like what it is I actually want,
Mhm.
versus gratitude compared to Jen's not yelling at her parents.
Well, and my brother and my husband and
Okay, well, that's
friends,
Anybody you're around.
now you're starting to pop off a little bit. Jen.
my coworkers.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. That's pretty tough specifically to envision right now, but I do know, I guess, just generally having uh, a less negative thought process around the things that I aspire to have, opening up the door for more positive relationship with the things I don't have, as opposed to a negative mindset around them that includes tension and things like that. That I feel would eventually kind of push me away as opposed to get me closer to those types of things. So that's generally, I don't know specifically what that looks like, but generally that's what I can think of right now.
Okay. So we got intentions, we got visions. What are some other alternatives to resolutions?
Oh, other alternatives. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was sitting here
That's a
thinking.
list, right?
I was sitting here thinking, like, well, my intention is to buy a silicone mermaid tail. If I said it at New Year's, nobody can argue with me that I shouldn't. So
I
But then-
can.
Do you think that you could argue though that New Year's resolutions and setting intentions and creating a vision are essentially the same thing or interchangeable?
Kind of,
It's just whatever the language that
you could, yes. I mean, I
you're
think
probably tied to.
I think when people say resolution, we get very specific. I mean, maybe it's too general. It's like, I'm going to quit smoking. Well, there's a lot of steps between here and there that have to happen, and things you're not going to consider, and you don't consider what might get in the way of that. You just, all the things. There's a big plan that has to happen. And so, yes, in some way, I think Anthony's whittling it down. And as he's whittling it down, we're getting more close to being just whatever resolution is. Whereas if you keep it more general, like, adventure, if it was adventure, then I'm going to sort of, find a way to infuse this theme of adventure into my life on a regular basis, and that regular basis can be different for everybody. It could be daily for somebody, it could be weekly for somebody, it could be monthly for somebody else. And so I think that allowing for flexibility is important, and allowing for flexibility in that as well is important. Anthony's a more cerebral kind of person, and he wants to fine tune it down to specifics. But I think that
we haven't even gotten to, like, I don't like the themes and I don't like the visions.
there's
We haven't
some
even gotten to all that.
safety. There's safety in not having to whittle it down, not being so specific, because then we won't fail, right? There's a safety net there. And so and that's not a bad thing. There's something to that. And it is a viable alternative. And on that note, there's an alternative that sort of came up in all of this that I like a lot. And it's to set like a monthly challenge, like set like a monthly intention, like instead of it being annual or something like that, just say, well, this month I want to do this one thing. Like I would like, I just want to practice, and it sort of takes this down from this big 12-month macrocosm of time to a 12-month bite that maybe is more palatable and achievable. And then you get flexibility, and then if you screw up one month, the next month's here so quick. So we get to just throw that away and start over the following month. There's something I like about that. So sort of changing it from an annual resolution to a monthly, or just shortening that timeline. I think that is a viable alternative. Another cool one that I like too was to create a yearly bucket list. Like this year I would like to, and it's just like things that you'd like to do. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of cool. I like bucket list items. That's fun. And you feel so happy when you achieve them.
Bucket lists are nice because, I mean, you don't really fail a bucket list. You just check off boxes. So I only, if you go with the intention, I'm not going to get everything on the bucket list, but we'll try to get some of the things. I think that's a lot less pressure on you. So make a bunch of resolutions. Make so many resolutions that you have to achieve at least a handful of them.
What
I'm
are
a
your
fan of
thoughts
the.
about
If we want to go back to the following monthly challenges, I like that one a lot because when we grow, I mean, we kind of shift goals and perspectives. So I feel like if at the end of January you have a completely different resolution or something that you want to work on, it's okay to shift it because again, you're doing it in monthly chunks as opposed to something that you're kind of forcing yourself to stick with for the period of an entire year.
that? And as we're sharing, it's just something that's popping into my head. So like I run a little group of people that all want to get better at their breath hold, like get better at holding their breath. And it's essentially like an Instagram support group for people who want to hold their breath longer. And I will post in there different things, and we do check-ins, like how's your practice, and how's it going, and everybody falls off and does better at different times, but they all come in. But just having that little support group keeps us all sort of reminding ourselves of what we want. Like, so there's an option there. I think there's something there. Like, it's something I realized that was good for me and good for others, was for just to have like a little accountability pod of people. And ours is very judgment free. Like, ours is very like, okay, celebrate it. There are people in there that have physical health issues, mental health issues, that have life issues that, and as they come up, it's going to affect your practice. And that's okay. And everybody's all very supportive and understanding. And I absolutely love that. And we'll introduce little challenges along the way too. But I think that finding, something you want to do and finding a few other people that maybe want to do something similar, and then creating like a support group, a support pod, where everybody can sort of check in, at least for me, is very helpful. What are your thoughts?
Just so everybody knows, the breath holding isn't just for fun. It's for underwater modeling. It's not a group of people who are just seeing how long they can go without.
And free diving, and like, because there's different ones. People are doing it for different reasons, and
It's not just a hobby of just.
We have one guy that's a free diver, and he moved from California to New York, and now he doesn't get in the water as much, but he doesn't want to lose his breath hold, so he's in the group to practice. There's all different. There are people who are working towards more specific goals and just want to maintain that breath hold. So yes, it's not just for funsies.
Do you guys have like a season of free diving, or like is it too cold right now, or?
I mean, we can get in the water. We absolutely can. It depends. We've had king tides lately, so like that means that the water's really high, like so giant waves, and then really low tides, and it kind of messes with visibility and everything else. And plus, the water's kind of very cold right now. But if you have the right wetsuit, you can get in the water. I free dove all of last December, no problems. But it's definitely nicer when it's warmer and less cold. But if you're in a place though, like even like landlocked, or Lake Tahoe, or the Great Lakes, and that's your normal free dive spot, or east, it gets harder and harder the colder it gets, and some people are just froze out for certain times, and that's just how it is. So other people are landlocked, and they can only free dive when they can get to places. So definitely that's why the like competitive free divers end up moving to a place that they can do it year round, where it's no problem. It's just consistent all the time. Like the cenotes would be a great place to live if you're a free diver.
We're getting a little off track here.
Yeah.
I want to point out though something about what Brooke is talking about is focusing on systems and like little micro habits instead of a big goal of like, I want to get better at holding my breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what Brooke was just described in her pod. Like they, sort of build up to this, and you do like, how many minutes at a time?
I mean, it depends. So like, it's a little bit. So like, but like the first step, and whenever I welcomed everybody into the group, because there were some people new, was like, I just sort of introduced them to the science of breath holds. Like I was like, before you're even thinking about holding your breath, learn about the science of it and like how it all works. And that's going to teach you something. And then the next step was like, okay, now we're going to just do some CO2 training. We're going to do 3 breath holds to the urge to breathe. We're not doing this to like where it hurts, where we're panicking, just urge to breathe. And we're going to start to rebuild that tolerance. And we'll do that, you know, for a month or so. And then the next month, we're going to introduce doing apnea walks where we walk and hold our breath and count our steps. And like, so like, it's just little pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, but these little pieces, they're structured in a way. They're not just like, we're just going to hold our breath the longest and see who, you know, fails. It's structured little things like that.
That each help inch you and keep
Yeah.
you practicing. Yeah. For sure.
Which that was on my list. That was one of the alternatives to resolution is creating, and this is like pulled from the book called Atomic Habits, but creating micro habits or systems instead of, you know, these big overarching goals. So for an example for me is, you know, I've got a book that I want to finish by the end of the year, and I've got around 350 pages. So the goal is to finish the book by December 31st. I'm not thinking about the goal though. What I'm trying to figure out is the system or the micro habit. I need to read 12 and a half pages a day. And that's what I'm focusing on instead of, you know, getting to the book. And ultimately, finishing the book by the end of the year is completely arbitrary. I'm not really going to go crazy if it takes me an extra day or an extra week, but I am going to try to meet the 12 and a half, you know, pages a day. And that's my focus, not the bigger stuff. And if I go over that, that's perfectly fine. If I go under that, you know, oh well. Which is probably another thing that we should probably talk about is most goals are completely and utterly arbitrary. Like you don't, it's nice to set a due date on your goal, but like if you miss it by a couple days or a week or a month, is it really the end of the world? Does that mean you should stop working towards the goal?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
That-
Which
I-
might lead
that's
into
fine.
what Jen mentioned, which is black and white thinking. Like if you can't achieve it, it's not worth doing. Which goes into one of my favorite sayings, which is the opposite of if it's worth doing, it's worth doing perfectly. What it actually should be, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing crappily.
It's worth doing imperfectly.
Yeah. You should just do it even if it's not perfect, even if you're kind of, you know, doing a bad job at it. You should still work towards it, and maybe eventually it will be perfect.
I don't believe in perfect. So.
Or maybe it'll be amazing with
It'll be better
imperfection
improved.
because because there's beauty in imperfection. Maybe perfect would be boring. So maybe the imperfection is good.
I don't know what
Wow.
perfect is. Like I have no clue. So it's not like a measurement. I mean, maybe if we're talking about like freezing temperature, then there's probably a perfect or boiling temperature.
Well, that depends on your altitude, but yes.
see. Anyways,
I've never heard that. And so the reverse of that statement would be if it's only worth it if it's done perfectly, then is it even worth it? Like, because you're saying it's if it's worth it, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing imperfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to get hung up on being a perfectionist. Don't get hung up on having to meet every single goal. And once you get it imperfectly, it's no longer worth doing. Forget all that. If it's worth doing and it's worth, you know, whatever goal or resolution you have, just keep working at it. And forget about arbitrary due dates. Forget about, you know, the best way to do it. That's something I probably get wrapped up in a lot is like making sure every little detail is accounted for and making sure my spreadsheets for it are in order. Forget all that. Stop being a nerd and just, you know, do it. Go to the gym is my thing. Doesn't matter what you do there, just be there.
Just go stand in the gym.
Just go stand in the gym. If that's what it takes, if
That's
just
what I've been
standing
No,
in the
that's-
gym.
That's actually recommended in habit books to start creating the habit of moving through that discomfort of just getting yourself there. They say just get yourself there. Even if you don't go in and do anything, you're still moving towards actually doing something. How many times are you going to go there and stand there without doing something? Eventually you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do something.
Well,
now
I
you
could lay down.
past that.
I could lay
You
down.
can lay
take a
down
nap
at
in
the
the
gym.
gym. I could do it worse, but
You can go to the spa, the sauna, depending
Yeah.
on your gym. Like there's lots of options there.
at least you're using the gym membership you're paying for.
True story.
So that leads into another little topic, which is celebrate progress, not perfection, and celebrating the small wins. I'm not really much of a celebrating guy. I can see the appeal. It's just not something that's for me. But what about you guys?
Yeah, I don't do it so much.
I like celebrating. I just still feel like I struggle with like, how do I celebrate? I like don't know how to celebrate. I mean, I know how I've been taught, but I'm like unlearning all of that and trying to figure out what real celebration looks and feels like to me. And I'm still trying to figure that out, honestly.
For Jen, it's having a beer and a cigarette.
That's what it used to be. Okay.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what society conditioned me with. And now I'm like, ew.
Did you smoke?
When I was a teenager,
Oh, did you? Huh.
yeah.
Did you set a resolution and that's how you stopped?
No, I just realized it was disgusting in my early 20s. And so I started smoking straws instead. So like when my friends would smoke, I would smoke a straw. And I realized, oh, I just like the act of it.
What do you mean a straw? Like a plastic straw? Like you
Yes.
would light the
So I
end of-
would
you
smoke
would
air
For the
Oh,
behavior.
straw.
Yeah.
And
thought
so
you were
I
just
got the
burning
exact,
plastic.
She
no, it
wouldn't
works.
light it.
it worked so well because I got the same exact experience of like having a cigarette with my friends when we were drinking. Again, I'm not like this anymore. This is young Jen. And it worked because I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. And I never even, I don't know, I never wanted it after that. And then it was just over. And anytime I smell smoke now, I'm like, that's disgusting. I can't believe I did that.
So here's a underrated alternative to a resolution. Find a way to be disgusted with yourself.
This is another real thing. This is called disillusionment. This is when and mindfulness is part of it. So it's when you start really paying attention. So I'm out there smoking air and I'm realizing how disgusting the smell is coming from everyone around me. And I don't want to be in that circle of smoke anymore. Like that's step one is almost like lifting the veil of the illusion that it's something that is good or that you like. I mean, I didn't ever really like it. I just picked it up and then it was a bad habit. But yeah.
That's of
Once
course
it
if we
was-
want to change a bad habit, that or a habit you don't want anymore.
Yeah, no offense to anyone that smokes.
Yeah.
Except you're
Now that I've
disgusting
told it
and
disgusting.
Jen finds you gross. Okay, so we've got that. Celebrate progress. Find everything around you and yourself disgusting.
Well, the
What are
celebrating
some other-
progress. Okay, wait. We just
Oh,
breezed
yeah.
over that really quick. I mean, Jen was saying she doesn't know how to celebrate, but like that's important. Like taking a moment and like celebrating the little bits of progress, even if they're small, and acknowledging them and recognizing them. That celebration can be different for everybody, right?
Mhm.
But and I've had to rebuild some of my celebrating brain too and habits for sure and redefine them and what that looks like. And I don't know what it is anymore. Yeah, I'm not sure I mean, I think I celebrate in a lot of different ways. I do. I think I celebrate in a lot of different ways and they're all different. But it's not with food and alcohol anymore if I can help it. Maybe on occasion.
Buying mermaid tails.
Yeah.
On occasion, a
Sure.
pie, a slice of
A
pie,
pie.
or
Yeah.
it's a little celebration right
Yeah,
there.
not all or nothing, not black and white,
Yeah.
not never, but like just not the norm, not the go-to. Yeah.
Here's one on the list as well, which is I tend to do. I don't know if I like it, and I don't know if it's really helpful for me, but I notice that I do this, which is the annual reflection.
Mhm.
Just reflect on your past,
Yeah.
including accomplishments, challenges, and lessons, and the bad stuff too. I think I did that in my 30 when I turned 30. I was not about celebrating, but I was about stoic reflection and regret.
I'm not sure if I like that. Like, I'm not sure that that's.
It can be kind of a slippery slope, I think. I mean, I started doing it already today. It's funny that we're talking about this. And I didn't even know this was the topic, but I started doing it today in my workout. I started just thinking about what I'm proud of that I did this year. And I gave myself like just a lot of freedom of like, it can be super unconventional. And I made a pretty big list and I was feeling pretty good about it. But it, you know, some of the stuff though, it's not, again, it's, I don't know if anyone would look at it and go, gee, she feels good about that. Like I can see how it's very personalized, right? It's not a generic societal list of accomplishments, but it's very like, this means something to me because I've been working on this, or I've been wanting this, or I've been, you know, thinking about this for a long time.
So we're only reflecting like 1 year's worth of time, not beyond that. Because to me, it's like a slippery slope of like, oh God, it could go far and bad. And
I mean, I did my reflection at the end of my, decade of living, but for the year, instead of doing a resolution, you could do the reflection and be like, did I achieve or did I do things that I wanted to do in this span of time?
I could see though that could be really tough for some people who've had maybe a bad year, a rough year, a year that was, and so I mean I think that there, if somebody's doing that and your year has been a hellish year, if you have had a year that was really hard on you, there are things that happen that are out of our control, like death and random things that come up, all these things that can make somebody's year really hard and really not what they expected or anticipated. So for somebody that is reflecting, sitting down to reflect, well, if it's too much to reflect, don't do it. But if you're in a space,
don't think about things that hurt.
I think a big part of it, and even with what Jen said, this is something she probably extends to herself, is to reflect without judgment, right? Try to do it without judgment. Try to just, and maybe you're reflecting on you pick a theme or a topic or something that is constructive and helpful and healthy. And because for the people who are stuck in negative thought or things like that, it can be a really dangerous thing to reflect. So reflecting, I would reflect with an intention. Like I would probably reflect with an intention, like reflecting, okay, I want to celebrate the things, as little as they might be, that I did well, even when it was hard. Something like that, where you're able to still go back and unpack, but unpack in a way that is constructive and healthy for you as a human being. Yeah.
Well, and having a professional could be beneficial, whether you need a therapist type of person to unpack or even a coach, on that, I think is important to include. Yeah.
And I even like the word acknowledgement, which we use in coaching. Is there anything that needs to be acknowledged here? That type of question. Instead of looking at it as, what did I achieve or what did I accomplish? Maybe like, what do you want to acknowledge about yourself or that you experienced? I mean, it's almost a little more neutral than the potential charge from accomplishment or achievement could have for someone. So I like the word acknowledge a lot.
And now we're bringing it home, I think, to the final bit, which is the alternative to doing
Anthony had a list. We don't have the list, but he has the list.
No, the final one to bring it home is coaching. Do coaching instead of having a resolution.
That's, yeah. Can't even argue that.
The best way to actually achieve a goal, which is to be coached on it by a competent coach, and turn that resolution into something achievable.
Yeah. Make the resolution to get a coach by January 7th, and then carry on from there. If they are worth their salt, they'll help you through it.
Make the resolution to sign up for Coaching 101 January 7th through 9th.
Oh my goodness. Um,
So quickly, why would coaching be a good alternative to just throwing out a resolution?
Well,
Because you're
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Me?
Lisa,
After you.
Jen.
Because you are actually taking action when you work with a coach. You aren't just, in your head, or you're not just, saying you're going to do it. You're actually like getting coached is an action. I think like you're taking a step.
Yeah,
You're
I mean,
taking
you're
the next step.
partaking in an activity.
Yeah. That is going to facilitate the goal and is going to facilitate the next step towards the goal, which you may not have identified yet.
And hopefully, it's relevant and time bound and measurable. So, by the end of the coaching, did you actually achieve what you wanted? Yes or no? Or maybe that thing changed. Maybe
Mhm.
you had such a change of like mindset. You realized what you wanted as a goal wasn't really what you wanted or didn't align with your values.
Yeah.
And you give up on the thought of having a resolution. You just are someone who now only coaches or takes things step by step and is comfortable with being that kind of person. There's plenty of people who are perfectly fine with just not setting resolutions at the start of the year. Brooke is one of them.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't either. I mean, I have maybe once or twice, but no, I don't, no one's going to tell me when I need to set a resolution. Like I will set it whenever I want to.
Oh,
Well,
by the way, Jen, part of your job is now to set a resolution.
I like to call it experiment and explore what works and what doesn't work.
I'm just gonna do things when I want to do them. Like I'm just
Right.
gonna it doesn't have to be January 1st. Like like if
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I want to set a well, just do it. I mean now. you
Now,
know?
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I won't. I don't know.
But-
Jerome, do you have final thoughts?
I really just enjoy what Brooke said about flexibility. Life isn't an equation. You can't just plug in a couple factors and expect a certain outcome. Things change. It's not black and white. So allowing flexibility and just continue to take action is, I think, ultimately the goal, no matter what your resolution is. I think those two things in tandem can help you achieve pretty much anything.
Yeah. I think that should wrap it up then. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment, and make the best New Year's resolution and take our classes. Become
Or
a
don't.
certified life coach.
We'll
Or
take the
do.
classes. Take the classes, but you don't have to make a resolution.
Yeah. But either way, take the classes, sign up, become a coach. We've got Coaching 101, Coaching 102, mentor coaching, performance
Yeah, then you-
evaluations.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
You can get mentored. And that actually, I'll tell you what, I said it in the alumni group today, but for anyone suffering with imposter syndrome, that's a big game changer, or at least it was for me. I mean, getting clarity on what my strengths are and really understanding what area of opportunity I have in my coaching and then feeling good about focusing on that. I mean, that was big. So
She's talking to
Yeah,
people who
I
are
recommend
already
that.
about people who are already coached, like have already gotten their certification, and not. I mean, you can be mentored in other spaces, but she's specifically talking about mentor coaching, which is mentoring for coaches.
We turn your coaching sessions into awesome ACC level sessions that will hopefully pass the performance evaluation. And if you don't want to do a performance evaluation, it'll just make you a better coach.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that should wrap up
Hold
Planning
on really quick.
101.
Jeremy says if he had the funds, he would have signed up a long time ago to get a certificate. Well, Jeremy, you're in luck because beginning January, there are like a couple scholarship opportunities that start
Mhm.
January 1st. So maybe that is a way that you can help acquire the funds in order to get your certificate.
Mhm.
So
International Coaching Federation and ACTO, a different organization, where they have scholarships for full programs. But that should wrap it up. We'll see you guys next week with a different Planning 101.